Good morning. This morning I was doing a little bit of research about my trip to France, and I started thinking about how worrying about the logistics of traveling by yourself to a foreign country really is real. Like, people do have these fears, but it's also really common. Um, you know, Getting out there and doing it by yourself, it can be stressful, it can be uncomfortable. A lot of people, I think they can do it, and then they really second guess their thinking. And then some people that I know personally just avoid solo travel altogether, and they don't want to have anything to do with it for a lot of reasons. They think they're going to be bored, they're going to be lonely, it's unsafe. There's all sorts of things that they think about. And you can either agree with them or you can disagree with them, but they're real worries that people have. This fall, I'm going to travel first to Angers and then down to Dijon, France, to see if it's somewhere that I would like to live longer term or even full time. And when I'm thinking about those things, I do actually have some things that I worry about, even though I've traveled a fair bit by myself. There's still things that pop into my mind and kind of freak me out a little bit. So my thinking is this: I thought it would be fun to talk about the 5 things, not the 5 things, but 5 things in total that I kind of worry about, and then come back later on when I'm actually in France, boots on the ground, with a little more experience, and see if my fears were warranted or if I figured out a way to get around them. So here we go. One of my teaching partners in Dearest Friends has this amazing superpower, and I'm really envious of it. When she travels to a different country, literally within days of arriving, she's getting invited to people's houses for dinner. I don't know how she does it. It's an amazing superpower. I do not possess this superpower. Kind of wish I did, but she's a total extrovert and I'm a total introvert, and it's here where this particular worry lies. Even introverts need to have some human connection, some company, some conversation with other people. And so my worry is that I'm not going to find people, because 3 months is a long time to be somewhere and not have the company of other people. So it's not like you're, laying down roots in a specific place, but you're also not there on a week's vacation either. So I worry about finding people to just kind of hang around with while I'm there. And it doesn't have to be all the time, obviously, but a little bit of company would be a really good thing, I think, for me. Number 2 on my list of things to worry about is public transportation, and how do you use it and where do you use it? And these are the things that I'm not 100% sure of. And because I'm going to be by myself, you don't have that other person to try and help you figure things out as you go along. I think one of the biggest things that I'm worried about when it comes to public transportation is the process of getting from the airplane onto the train to Angers. And that for me is a big kind of stressor. Once I arrive in Angers, how do I get to my accommodations? Do I take a bus? How do I find a bus? How do I pay for a bus? Where do I get on? Where do I get off? These things. If I need to go shopping? Well, I will need to go shopping while I'm there. Where do I go? How do I take the public transportation to make that kind of stuff happen? These are all silly things. And yet when you start thinking about doing them by yourself, I think we tend to make them bigger than they actually are. Having said that, it is something that I'm worried about. Suitcases, luggage. How do you deal with luggage when you're by yourself? So 3 months, I'm not exactly sure that I can pack everything I need in 3 months, because I want to bring some of my painting stuff. I want to bring stuff for making videos. I need to bring clothes and all that kind of thing. So I'm not sure that I can fit everything that I want to bring into one suitcase. So if I have 2 suitcases, how the heck do you manage 2 suitcases all by yourself? It's not the airplane that's the worry, it's the trains. And I'll tell you why. I am 5 feet tall on the nose. Like, I'm not 5'1", I'm 5 feet tall. Last time I was there on the TGV, we took the train and I could not get my suitcase up in the storage rack over the seats. My traveling partner had to do that for me because he's quite tall. I couldn't get them up there and I couldn't get them down. So how do I do that? How do I manage that? How do I navigate that sort of problem when I'm by myself? You would hope that I could kind of just rely on the kindness of tall strangers, but I'm not really sure that that's a sensible way of doing it. So I really need to think about this because it's a worry. It's a worry. I don't want to, be a nuisance, but I also don't want to do something that's going to make things really difficult for myself. And it's not even that. It's like, if you have 2 suitcases, how do you get on public transportation after you take a train, like a tram or a bus? I don't know. Like, I'm going to have to walk, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to have to figure it out. But I worry about that. Another thing that I really worry about is money, how to pay for things, and what happens if, a form of payment that you have with you, doesn't work for some reason. For example, like if you pay with a Visa or something and for whatever reason, the Visa is not accepted or it's denied, and then you're sitting there and you're kind of stuck with nobody else to rely on. So I'm going to take, a Visa, a card, a Wise card, Euros, bank card, those kinds of things. But just, I think the anxiety of being in a situation where the form of payments that you have don't work and you have nobody else to rely on is so stressful. What do you do? I hope that it's never a problem. But if it is, like, I don't know. I guess cash is king, right? Like, as long as you've got some euros on you, you should be good to go. I would hope. Okay. Last thing that I'm going to allow myself to worry about is emergency situations. Medical emergencies, or, if something happens where I'm targeted, where I'm mugged or robbed or attacked or something like that. I mean, you don't really want to talk about those things or think about them, but I think, people actually do worry about these things when they're traveling by themselves. Not just women, but I really think that it's both women and men, because it's, it can be a very stressful situation, like having your passport stolen, your money, your credit cards, all that kind of thing. Stressful. And how do you work around that? You need to have a good medical insurance policy for you when you're traveling. Maybe you have your copies of your passport stored in your accommodations or saved on your phone, which hopefully doesn't get taken. I think there's ways of working around it, but I think that that handling those emergencies is something that pushes a lot of people away from solo travel. And it shouldn't, because there's always a way to work around it. There's police, there's embassies, there's, lots of different ways to deal with things, but definitely something that plays on my mind. It's not going to stop me, but it does give me pause every now and again. These are things that are probably the more negative aspects of solo travel. They're things that are uncomfortable and unpleasant to really kind of stop and think about. They're not the fun planning and researching and all that kind of stuff. It's not part of that, but it is in a way, because you don't want to get stuck in a situation that you haven't prepared for. So I know that for myself, these fears kind of play into how I plan and the things that I make sure that I have. So it is really an integral part of the planning process, making sure that you've got copy of documents, making sure that you've got different forms of payment, making sure that you're trying to find, areas that are not really suitable to go to and areas that are safer to go to. You know, there's all sorts of things that lead up to a really good, fun, satisfying stay in a foreign country, and you just have to prepare for the unexpected. So as I said, my plan is definitely to come back and revisit these issues once I'm in France and I've been there for a little while. So I hope you'll come back then to check out that video. In the meantime, if you would like to check out my last video, I'm going to link it probably here, I think, or here, I don't know. Depends on YouTube. So we'll see you later. Bye.